buddies and take your seat in time for everyone's favorite bit, the trailers.
Hello and welcome to today's video, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different that I don't usually do on this channel. And today I'm going to be ranking and reviewing each scare attraction I have ever done within sort of the last few years in a tier list style video. Now obviously the Halloween season has actually officially ended as of the time of recording, but obviously so it's been an absolutely brilliant Halloween, even though I obviously only got to go to Scarefest. In my opinion, this year's Scarefest was a lot better than last year, and I'm hoping the future is going to lean in the right direction. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be basically ranking and reviewing every scare attraction I've done within the last few years in a tier list. As you can see on this list, there's 5 rankings. We've got Amazing, which is obviously the highest rank, the best rank of the list. We've got Great, Good, Okay, and we've got Terrible, which is the lowest rank on the list. And of these scare attractions, these are all the ones I've done within memory. We've got Altonville Mine Tours, both the original one and the newer reimagined version for this year, Tiny's Revenge. We've got Burial Grounds, Creepy Cave Resurgence, Darkest Depths, Daz Games Panic, The Attic Terror of the Towers, Garden Lights Walk Whispering Souls, Vile Villagers, The Swarm Invasion, Platform 15 End of the Line, The Crows of Walking Meadow, Terrorette Amity High, and The Invitation. And obviously I'm going to be ranking them in that order that I've just listed. Before we get into this, obviously this is my personal opinion. It might be an opinion that you may or may not agree with, but if not, that's perfectly fine. Obviously you can leave your opinion on attractions in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. And now let's get on with the ranking, starting with the original Altonville Mine Tours. Now, I did this maze for the first time last season. That was the last time it was actually in its original form. It's currently the oldest maze at Alton Towers. Even in its current form of Tiny's Revenge, it's still there. It originally opened in 2016. Like I said, I only started doing the mazes at Alton Towers last season, and this was obviously by far the best maze at the lineup last season. But when they reintroduced it this season as Tiny's Revenge, I feel like they made quite a few improvements from last season's, obviously by, like I said, extending the ending, changing the ending and beginning, and making it sort of like a better version of itself. So I'd probably rank Altonville Mine Tours. It, like I said, is a heavily themed attraction. All the mazes at Alton Towers are. It's got really good scares in there as well, so I'd probably rank that as great, because it's a brilliant scare maze. And obviously we've got the new version, Tiny's Revenge, next. And obviously this year what they did with it was honestly spot on. I love how they just reimagined it, obviously, because like I said, the original Mine Tours have been operating for about 7 years as of last season, and then this season they reimagined it for its 8th season to make it into a different maze. Now the differences in this year's version, and I did explain this in my Scarefest vlog, is that they completely changed the beginning scene. They made it sort of like the Altonville Sheriff County police department had taken over the mines and arrested all the skin snatchers except for one. One of the skin snatchers, called Tiny, hence the name Tiny's Revenge, was sort of like invaded the mines again. And obviously the beginning this sort of beginning scene was completely different to last season, and so was the ending as well. This year's ending, they added a chainsaw segment as well, which is so awesome. I'm glad we've finally got a chainsaw maze at Scarefest. Obviously they extended the ending as well, so that, like I said, the chainsaw bit stretches all the way to the outside of the park. Overall they just sort of enhanced the maze from last season, so I'd probably rank this up to Amazing, because it was really that much of an improvement. Next on our list is Burial Grounds. Now Burial Grounds is obviously the brand new scare zone at Alton Towers for this season. And when we first heard that they were adding a brand new scare zone in, after all these years, I just jumped for joy, knowing that we're finally going to get an attraction at Alton Towers that is an upcharge, that was free, obviously, and that it was like a scare zone, because we wanted one of them at Alton Towers for years now. I think about 5 or 6 years. The last one before this was the Freak Show scare zone, sorry. And that sort of finished in like 2017-18, and they hadn't added any since. Now Burial Grounds is an excellent scare zone. It's got really good theming, really good actors. One thing about it though, that's probably stopping it from being amazing, is that probably like the actor interactions with the guests. Because obviously, usually in really good scare zones, like things like Vile Villagers, which I'll get to in a minute, you've got actors interacting with you, sort of talking to you about the story of the maze and what's going on, things like that. It actually kind of makes it more creepier. Whereas in this, it's mainly just sort of jump scares from the actors and not much else. But they do a really good job at it, and I really appreciate what this is. Obviously, for the fact that it's the first scare zone at Alton Towers in many years, not exactly used to this kind of attraction. So I do believe they made a really good effort. So I'm probably going to put that in great next to Altonville. And the next attraction we have on our list is Creepy Cave's Resurgence. Now, Creepy Cave's Resurgence was the only scare maze at Chessington World of Adventures. And even though Chessington World of Adventures is a family-friendly theme park, what they did with this maze was honestly spot on, superb. It was actually a pretty scary maze for a family park. But obviously, the whole story about it, I think it's like a scientific experiment within the cave. I'm not sure, something like mutation or within this cave. I'm not entirely sure. It was kind of a bit of a confusing story, but it was a really good one. When you went into the maze, were all these like scary people with different weapons like axes and things like that, with like LED masks, and obviously it was kind of chaos as well, which I really like in a scare maze. Literally, it was so hard to see where you were going. It was loads of lights everywhere, strobe lights. You were getting jump scared around every corner, and it was honestly really good. And probably the best part about this maze, like all the others, is that this one you weren't sending a huge group of people. You were probably saying like maybe a group of half a dozen people at a time, and as soon as you got jump scared by the first scary actor, you were pretty much split up from the rest of that group, and it was really cool. So I'd probably rank that as amazing. It's my personal favourite scare maze, I think. Now, next on the list we've got Darkest Depths, which is Alton Towers. Now, this maze, it originally opened in 2019 as a family-friendly scare maze. Obviously, when I experienced it last year for the first time, they had made it slightly more scary, and obviously since 2020 it's been located next to the towers. One thing that this maze probably has the best is the theming. The theming in there is just immaculate. Honestly, you would not think that you were in shipping containers, because this maze is mainly built up of like shipping containers, but on the interior it genuinely feels like you were in a pirate ship going on this like quest to find the Kraken, and it is so immersive. But obviously, like I said, Mine Tours are probably the best one for scares. This one, I think, along with the attic, weren't really too strong on scares, but it was excellent on theming. Obviously, it was a pretty good maze. Like I said, the scares weren't really that intense. Like I said, originally it was a family maze, so I'd probably rank it as good. It's not like ultra intense like the other mazes, but I don't think it really needs to be. Like they did say, it was originally a family maze, so you can't really blame them for that. And now, next on the list is Daz Games Panic, which is one of 3 brand new scare attractions at this year's Scarefest. I've experienced it originally. When I first went in there, I kind of went in not really knowing what to expect, because, well, obviously with it being themed around a gaming YouTuber who I wasn't really familiar with up until Scarefest, I didn't really know what to expect. I heard it was an interactive experience, but I had heard a couple of criticisms about it, saying it wasn't really heavily themed, and there weren't really a whole lot of actors in there. I went in it, and obviously the reviews were right, there weren't a whole lot of theming, but it really was actually pretty amazing, really good in there. Obviously, the fact that you had to go, basically the whole premise of the maze, you've got, not the maze, a scare attraction, because it's not a maze. You've got 7 minutes to find these 2 symbols, and when you find each symbol, you've got to scan them with a wristband. The technology in Dance Games Panic is actually really impressive, considering it's only a scare attraction. Obviously, within those 7 minutes, I will admit, I actually did kind of fail the experience. I found my symbols were triangle and clock. I found clock within the first sort of couple of, like, 2 minutes. I did actually start panicking as soon as, like, it doesn't help the fact that announcements go off every minute saying 6 minutes remaining, 5 minutes, and then it's like it just adds that extra bit of panic, which is kind of the whole point of the experience. There isn't a whole lot of theming in there, just some metal fences and strobe lights. The actors do a good job, especially considering that you're really just trying to focus on finding these symbols. But they do a good job in that experience, so I'll probably rank Dance Games Panic as great, I think. Obviously, like I said, the theming could have been better, but then again, I don't really know what kind of theming to expect from a sort of gaming YouTuber themed scare attraction. But it was really good. I'm not sure if it will return next year because it's got obviously in partnership with another media personality, so it might be a 1-year thing. But if it is, then I'm glad I experienced it when it was originally open. And now we are on to the final scare maze at Alton Towers Scarefest, the Attic, Terror of the Towers. Obviously I did this last season. This was actually one of 2 or 3 scare attractions I didn't experience last year, along with Darkest Depths and The Invitation, because I know that all 3 of those attractions would have been the exact same. And I did mine towards because that was the best maze and I knew it was different. The Attic, one really good selling point with the Attic is that it's located within the tower's ruins themselves. So that was a really unique part of it and a really amazing, really cool part of it as well. And it's also a continuation of the previous Terror of the Towers scare mazes, so it's a continuation of the original Terror of the Towers from when the event first started, Bloodfest Banquet, and Terror of the Towers What Lies Within. Pretty sure this is the 4th Terror of the Towers maze in Scarefest history. And I went in there thinking it was probably going to be like an absolutely astonishing maze. I went in there, the theming was obviously really good, like with all the mazes at Towers. But I was kind of sort of underwhelmed after I came out of it, because I'm not sure if it was different this year or in previous seasons, but when I went in last year, there were only a few actors in there. Probably maybe 4 or 5 actors. That's probably an over-exaggeration, but there were a lot of actors, at least compared to Darkest Depths or Mine Tours. And I think that might have been a consistent problem with last year's version of Attic, and I think this year as well. When you can't obviously take into account that there's not been a lot of changes from when it first opened. So I kind of went in a bit underwhelmed, so I'd probably rank that as okay. It wasn't terrible, it was actually really cool having a scare maze within the towers. I like that idea, but I think it could have benefited from more actors. Now I've got a different one, Garden Light Walk Whispering Souls. Now, unlike the other scare attractions on this list, it's not really like a maze or a scare zone or anything like that. It's not even got loads of scares in it. It's mainly literally loads of spooky lights in the gardens to make a sort of kind of magic sort of experience, more like magic than scary than anything. And obviously they did a really good job. I'm so sad it didn't return this year, because apart from the mazes, obviously it was one of the highlights of last year's Scarefest. I think that this year's Scarefest would have probably been a lot more better reviewed if this had returned. Obviously we know that it got a lot more better reviewed with Grounds and Games and Mine Tours, but it probably would have been better if this had returned. It was a really good attraction. It was a really nice. It was obviously quite simple. It was literally just a load of lights in the gardens, but it was really cool as well. They also had themed spooky music as well, which I really loved. It did sort of make it sort of like a ghost, as if there were ghosts in the gardens, which was really good. So I'd probably rank that as good. And now we have got Vile Villagers of Wild Woods at Chessington World of Adventures. Now this was obviously currently the first and only scare zone at Chessington Halloween, and it was honestly an excellent scare zone. It's like all this, apart from the Swarm Invasion and Terror at Amity High, all the scare zones on this list, like the one-way scare zones that were like heavily themed. So Burial Grounds and Morky Meadow and Vile Villages are all one-way scare zones that are heavily themed. And I really enjoyed this one. This one's themed around sort of vampires. It's really cool. It's like you're going in like a old, like sort of Dark Ages style village that has kind of like been haunted by vampires, which is also fitting because it's in the same themed land as Vampire, the roller coaster. And obviously, when I went in, it was honestly excellent. The scares, it was different each time. There was one time I went in and the scares were probably a bit more like intense than the one time where I actually filmed it and put in the vlog. Literally, as soon as we went through that final tunnel, I was literally being chased out of the tunnel by a guy who was walking on all fours as if like it was a spider, and it can sometimes be pretty intense, which is honestly really cool because last season they introduced a new sort of system where the first couple of hours open is quite family friendly, but as it gets darker, the actual experience gets a lot more scary and intense. So I'd probably rank, like I said, it is at Chessington, so it's a family sort of, well, I say more family friendly. I rank that as great. Now we have Swarm Invasion at Thorpe Park. Now this scare zone, it's not like the other scare zones on the list where it's one way scare zone, one singular route. It's more of like a free flow scare zone. It's located on Swarm Islands. It's basically like the whole area with some additional theming and actors. And don't get me wrong, they did a really good job at it, but I think I probably prefer more one-way scare zones that are more better themes, like Burial Grounds, Crows, Vile Villages. Because obviously it feels kind of more like tighter in these one-way ones, plus it's more immersive in the one-way scare zones. But for what they did with the Swarm Invasion, they did a pretty good job, so I'll probably rank that as good. Now we've got Platform 15, End of the Line. Now this one's kind of special because it's the first scare maze I ever experienced. And it's not like the other maze on this list, it's an outdoor scare maze, where all the other ones on here are indoors. And it was an excellent experience. It was great for a first scare maze, but if I did it now, it probably wouldn't be that intense. The main sort of thing that probably takes away from the intensity of it is because it is outdoors, and I did it in the daytime as well. So it's kind of difficult as well because like I heard outdoor mazes are better at night, but obviously if you do it at night, the queues are going to be insane. So that's why I do all the indoor mazes first in the day, because it's going to be the exact same experience at night, but for some reason the queues are longer for the nighttime experiences. But obviously if I didn't now, I probably wouldn't be that scared of it. So I'll probably rank that, I'm not sure if I want to rank that as okay or good. I don't know, I'd probably rank that as okay. It was a good first scare maze. If it still existed, I'd probably recommend it as like your first scare maze, because it was pretty good for a first maze, but like it's not as good as these other ones. Okay, so now we're down to the final three: the Crows of Morky Meadow, Terror at Amity High, and the Invitation. So the Crows of Morky Meadow, honestly, is literally one of the best presented scare attractions from when I went to Fright Nights last 2021. I did it in its opening season. It has had a few changes since I first went. It's been expanded upon. They've added new segments to it, but when I first went, honestly, it was probably one of the highlights of the trip. It's so heavily themed, it honestly feels like you're going into like this old style, like sort of cornfield village. It's similar to Vile Villages in a way. It's set like an old style sort of village, but this one's got like scarecrows in it, who have become really popular at Fright Nights. And it is so immersive, and I honestly just love it, the fact that the Crows have their own scare zone. So I'll probably rank this as not great, amazing, because it's my favourite. I think it's my favourite scare zone, to be honest. Now we've got Terror at Amity High. This is the final scare zone that I have to rank. This one's kind of special as well, because I think this is the first scare zone in memory that I ever did. But obviously this was way before it was like a dance show. This was in its opening year, where it was just Terror at Amity High. There was no like dance show to it, so that the actors were just sort of roaming the Stealth Plaza. Plus there was no Lycanthrope back then as well, so there wasn't like any sort of story about a rivalry or anything like that, so the actors did a pretty good job for what they had, but they were just sort of roaming the stealth plaza, so I'd probably rank that as probably okay. I think I would have liked it better if I'd experienced it like as the actual damn show. I didn't get a chance to when I went in 2021, where it was Amti versus Lycan for both fights. But it was pretty good for its opening year, but I would have preferred it if it was like what has been the past couple of years, like an actual show type of thing. And finally, last and certainly least, the invitation. Now, obviously, the invitation, you don't need me to tell you that this was audio experience from Darkfield was just wasted potential. It was an audio experience made by Darkfield, who usually specialise in creating these immersive audio experiences that, obviously, they are extremely immersive. Things like Flight, Coma, Seance, things like that are all supposed to be really good. But this one came to a theme park. They literally just put you in a shipping container with headphones on in pitch black. It wasn't great. It was actually kind of terrible, kind of really a disappointment, considering it's supposed to be from Darkfield, who usually are kings at immersive experiences like this. So obviously, it's no brainer. I'd rank it as terrible. But yeah, that is it for this scare attraction tier list. This video has probably gone way longer than I thought it would, but I really enjoyed making this video. If you have experienced any of these, or any of us different scare attractions, and if you would like to leave your opinion, you may do so in the comments down below. But obviously, I want to thank you very much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, then please make sure to like and subscribe, and comment what you would like to see in the next video. Bye!